I'm going to put some yellow under a few of these leaves to give it an undertone. I come in here and just kind of move my brush around a little bit, making a pattern, leaving some of the white of the paper. And now I'll go in and get a little bit of a darker tone in here. Really do want this to be more muted, so you can choose if you want your bouquet to be bright, then you want to choose the colors for that. Okay. And then I'll move over to this one. Looks like that same color. Maybe a dab of hibiscus in there. And as always, I'll kind of go around the outside of these petals. Add a little bit more saturated color here. Wait for that to dry. And looks like we've got a little more saturated ones here. And now I'm going to just deposit some minerals into this, as it'll dissipate a little bit but give it some interest. And I'll probably add another layer in a little bit. And back over here, that's a little bit dry. It's a little tacky, that way it'll kind of blend a little but not travel everywhere. And we'll come in here and just take a clear brush and kind of go over those areas. You'll see, you can still kind of see where there was the white of the paper. And now I'll tap in a little bit of pigment here. And I've got this, you might want to wait till that dries, but we've got this pineapple. Maybe I'll come in here with a little coconut just to tone it down a little bit. And I'll take my clear brush and go over some of these areas. And I'll get this here. Again, leaving the white of the paper. I was going to say, be careful not to get into your other areas. And then I just went over the tip of that leaf right here. So I'm just pushing that pigment back. Dab with my paper towel really carefully. And now that purple's gone, I'm going to come here and just add those little tiny, like I call this dancing my brush, just kind of skipping, touching. Let that dry. Okay, so we're moving over to this little kind of pom-pom. This pinky is kind of an extra in your, you can get that extra added into any of the palettes that I have. I sell those separately, and it is in the classics. So if you're painting this out of the classics, you've got that in there. You don't have the sunset, which you could take a little bit of pinky and the red from the classics and basically make this sunset color. Oh, that's pretty bright, so I'm going to just take a little bit of that pigment out of there just to tone it down a little bit. And in my original painting, I have more of these in the reef color. If you're doing your own colors, you just want to plan it out ahead of time so that you get a well-balanced bouquet in the sense of tone, intensity, and that you don't have all pink on one side and purple on the other. And you don't want any one thing to stand out as a focal point. Now that I've found what color I want to do my vessel, and you're welcome to make it look like it's white. And the best way to do that is just to put in a little bit of shadow areas and leave the white of the paper. Okay, now I'm going to pull some pigment in, and I do want to leave this kind of as a highlight. You can see I'm leaving a little bit of the white of the paper, and I don't want that line there. I'm just going to deposit some paint minerals. Like so. And these books, you can, so I've got this, I'm going to do a background on here anyway, but I'm going to just kind of pull that back where I went out of the line. Mixed up kind of a terracotta color with some orange and brown, maybe a little bit of red, I can't remember. And maybe I'll do that up here. And I got this. And get a little bit of brown here. I think that book is turned the other way, so that stays white. Kind of have the sort of pages. You don't have to do this, but you'd want a real light line there. Okay. And the top of this is wood, so you can add more red to it depending on what kind of wood you'd like yours to look like, or lighter for an oak. And then down here we have all these kind of grain lines, and I chose to do sort of very whimsical looking, not super realistic, following some of these lines, kind of dancing my brush across here, not very particularly. You could also come across and just do the whole thing in like a light color, sort of like that, and then dance those lines across so that it's not white like the paper. So I'll just put that there, wait till those are dry, and then do that same technique along the bottom. In the meantime, I'll come up here and work on my greenery. So making sure my hand is not in my paper. I'm going to go over these leaves. And when I teach people about leaves, they get very meticulous. Like I went out of the line there. I'd be okay to leave it like that, but a lot of people don't want to see any mistakes. It's also good to hold your paper away from you time and again if you don't have any water that would run if it's saturated, but it's good to take a look at it from a distance. We get so up close, and our work typically isn't going to be seen up close. So I'm going to add a little bit of that and some of these. We'll see what happens. It's pretty pretty dark, so I'm getting some of that. After I mix my colors, you may want to wipe your brush off so you don't have it saturated. Now see, I went out of the lines there. And you may want to do one color of green for a particular shape of leaves so that it looks like it goes with that particular flower. And I typically do that. And today I am just buzzing through this. So that you can get this demo in a shorter period of time. I'm going to add a little bit of brown. Just adds another little layer of texture. You can do that with a darker green mixture if you want something like that, but not quite as brown. And looks like a stem. And I'm thinking this might have like a black center to it. And grab some pigment here to kind of dab in. Right now we'll just finish this down here. So if you decide what you want to do from the up front, then all three would look the same. And you can add a little bit of shadow. So now we'll go around the outside if you'd like a background. And this is still a little bit wet, so you'd want to ideally just leave it for a minute and come back. But I'm just taking a thin layer of water, not too much so my paper doesn't buckle, and just going around. I'm just going to do that half for now. And I'm picking kind of a brown gray. And now I'm putting wet paint into the wet paper. And I'm just going to kind of dabble it around or just barely touch it into some of these areas. I'm not going to go behind the whole bouquet. And I like to lay it down up and down, but I like to work left to right usually, or at least have a rounding motion so that in a background so that it doesn't get stripy unless you want stripes. I'm just being careful around that purple so that I don't lift any of that color. And if you want to make it look like there's some shadows kind of from, you can kind of come in here and sort of imply that there's a shadow being cast.